and then here's Kelly. All right, so we'll get started with our round robin updates.
It's the best.
Let's see. I mean, thanks everyone for joining us on Zoom and then here in the room as well. We did budget a little extra time for the updates today. If you want to give us any more details on the projects you're working on this spring or what you have planned for the summer into fall season, I'm sure everyone's really busy right now. So any details you want to share about what you're working on and what you have planned, we'd love to hear. So we'll just start going around with the updates and I'll call out people's names and then you can tell us what you're up to. And if you have any questions for the group or asks for collaboration or support. Okay, I see Kelly right there. It looks like you might be ready to share.
Good morning. ERS has been working on the Western Cal VTP, and we're keeping our fingers crossed that that process will get worked out in the next couple of months. Hopefully we'll finish that project up and then hopefully start implementation one of these days, which would be great. We've pretty much finished the Gernwood portion of the north side shaded fuel break, and we're halfway through the Rionito portion of the shaded fuel break. And the second half of the Rionito project will, we're estimating will begin the middle of August, beginning of September, pending bird nesting season. And we'll then move over to the Mount Jackson shaded fuel break shortly after that. So we're keeping our fingers crossed we can get some of these fuel breaks in and hopefully diffuse any fire situations that could come through the Russian River area. Other than that, ERS has been quite busy doing typical forestry work, and thank you and glad to see everybody. Next person.
Good to see you too. Yeah, thanks for that update. And I'm excited to see those shaded fuel breaks. Great to hear that they're underway. Let's see, I can jump to another person on Zoom. What about Dee?
Howdy, I just arrived. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm Dee Swanheiser. I'm with Taking Action for Living Systems, and I'm also one of the founders of this forest working group along with Fred, UFRAT. And we are working on finding ways to find funding for private landowners but not through grants, but rather through investments of different types and a governance structure that would tie us all together. So that's what I'm doing.
Update. Let's see. Sarah Kaiser, are you available to give us an update on what you're working on right now?
Do you want me to give an update on NBFIP?
Ooh, maybe you can join us. I think we're going to talk a little bit more about that later.
Okay.
So we could do that all together. And I guess anything else that you're working on this spring? That's the main one.
Yeah, probably that NBFIP is the big one that I would touch base on.
Okay.
Thanks.
Cool. Let's see. What about Mim Allison?
Well, if I could get my, here I am.
Great.
Well, I'm here as a landowner, and I am busy in the usual spring projects or post-rain, pre-fire season projects of weed whacking and mowing for the most part. And all the cleanup coming up, left over from the winter to be prepared for the fire season. So that's my agenda right now. And I apologize, I'm going to have to cut out early today. It's not for lack of interest, but something I couldn't help.
No worries at all.
Mim, how many acres of forest lands do you have?
Well, I have 500 acres total land. of which about half is forest and half is grassland.
Wow, very fortunate. I'm one of the smallies. I am a landowner too and have a total of 7 3/4 acres.
No matter what the size, it's always more work than you think you can
Yeah,
handle.
that's for sure. Anyway, welcome again and thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Let's see, okay, we have, I think the last person who's on Zoom who isn't also in the room is Brooke Edwards.
Good morning, y'all. Brooke Edwards from Sonoma County Regional Parks. We're working on a number of prescribed burns this spring. And over at our Shiloh Ranch Regional Park and then also Cloverdale. Looks like our Tole spring burn will be actually happening in the fall. So that's been postponed till fall. So yeah, we're just kind of busy getting all the burn plans and smoke management plans in place so that we can go out there and get some good fire on the ground. In terms of the Santa Rosa JC Wildfire Resilience Program, that's the internship program that's run at Schoen Farm and is implemented in Schoen Forest. We have been working on that program. It is a class now and an official internship with the Santa Rosa JC. And we obtained fiscal sponsorship from Northern Sonoma County Fire Foundation. So it's a nonprofit. And so now we're able to actually go out and try to get some grant funding for that program to pay for on-the-ground instructors, but then also pay for the interns in that program. And that's a workforce development program, getting students the skills of working out in the forest, doing fuel reduction work, pile building, pile burning, broadcast burning, restoration type work. Really important, giving the students skills where they can then enter the job market. So we're excited about having that fiscal sponsor, and then we just applied for a CAL FIRE workforce development grant, about $620,000 we're asking for. So we'll see what happens with that. But all that work towards trying to get that grant, we can, if we don't get that grant, we can put that towards other grant opportunities. So now that we have the framework and a fiscal sponsor in place, really the main focus is to bring in funding. So we'll be looking at a variety of different sources to bring in funding for that JC program. If you all have any ideas or heard of any kind of workforce development funds that we can apply to, please let me know. That's it for me.
Okay, great update. And that sounds like you made some great progress with the SRJC program. So congratulations. We'll move on to some updates from folks in the room. So Patty, Aaron, do you want to give us an update?
Thanks. Hi, Patty Aaron with the Sonoma RCD. The Good Fire Alliance is having its spring barbecue on Saturday at Spring Lake Park. Adriana and Rose, I just emailed you the information. If one of you could put it in the chat, that would be great. So it's from 11 to 3. If you could come join us, that would be great. Thank you.
Taco bar.
Taco bar.
Taco bar.
Taco bar.
Okay.
And Jason's making some really good meat stuff.
And we got 17 pounds of carnitas.
Okay, that's an important update. All right.
We have some people show up.
Just put the information into the Zoom chat if you all. And then the next person in the room is Adriana Stagnero.
Yeah, so Goldrich is busy and up to lots of different things. I feel like one update to share is that we've kind of slowed down all the workshops that we were doing through NIFWIT, that grant's kind of coming to a close. So we're gonna have a pause on the workshops with one exception, which is that we have a workforce development workshop that Kim is spearheading, that'll be held next month. And we'll be with our partners, CCNB, Circuit Rider, and Resilience Works. So that's it's not a public workshop, but it is our final workshop for that workshop series. And then in the next few months, we'll be kind of figuring out what more workshops we want to host and bring those back online. So So yeah, I think we'll have a little bit of a quiet time, but then we'll ramp back up. And, like Kelly said, we're working on this, VTP permitting document for Western Sonoma County, so really Goldridge's district. That will help us use the VTP as a permitting tool to streamline permitting of future projects, forestry projects in the future. So we're excited to get that document finalized soon and be the sequel lead for our partners who need that coverage in Western Sonoma County. So more to come on that. Trying to think what else is relevant. Oh, NB5, we'll be talking about that soon. That's ramping back up, which is a cost share program for private landowners to get funding through CAL FIRE to do improvement projects on their properties. And similar to that is an NRCS program called RCPP. It's very much like EQIP. And we have a round of that funding coming available this fall. And that's also really focused on forestry and wildfire management in forests and grasslands. So that's a cost share program that the RCDs are partnering with NRCS on. So yeah, I think we're just kind of, it's spring, everything's in bloom. We're all just kind of working on these new projects. Last thing is that in West County too, we still have defensible space rebates for any private landowners who would like a little extra assistance improving their defensible space in the towns of Occidental, Monterey, Camp Meeker, and Forestville. So if you're in any of those, let me know. And all right, that's it.
Thanks. Thank you. And then we'll move over to Christopher.
Hello, everyone. My name is Christopher Seche. I live on Coben Valley Road in Occidental. I'm a landowner. I have a conservation easement of about 50 acres of 74 acres of the parcel. As I was talking to some people earlier, we're on year 4 of an NRCS grant and hopefully wrapping up our work on about 7 acres of fire risk area that will adjoin with Oxford Varsity Ecology Center shaded fuel break on the other side. That's one thing. I'm also here as a representative of Safer West County. I'm sure all of you are on the newsletter, so you probably know what's going on there. Related to that, I'm on the steering committee of Bohemia Collaborative. We just had our quarterly meeting recently and took a lovely walk on the Hampton Fire Access Road, which was a grant-funded endeavor by a contractor to clean about 100 feet on each side. Looks fantastic, providing a really nice break between Camp Meeker and Occidental. That is open to the public. It's part of the new Monterey Community Park. So, of course, we're on just waiting to hear something from Jason on the Forest Health Grant. Maybe he has some exciting news to share about the Forest Health Grant. I'll leave it to him to update us, but that would include work on that Monterey community. I keep saying Monterey, Camp Meeker. Sorry. We gotta correct these old people. That make mistakes.
Confusing.
Sorry, that should be Camp Meeker Community Park. There's so many community parks out in West County now, hard to keep track of them. Anyway, that grant would assist us with that 387 acres of forest and adjoining properties. So we're waiting to hear on that. I'm also working with Bodega Land Trust on the Tannery Creek Reserve, which is their only Bodega Land Trust's only directly managed conservation easement. They co-manage with others on conservation easement. This is one they directly manage, and we're engaging the stakeholders, all the adjoining neighbors of Taylor Lane, Lori Lane, Jennifer, Joy Ridge, in a stakeholder process to get people involved as a neighborhood support group around the work that needs to happen inside and taking care of it, and dealing with the authority issues about whether dogs are permitted or not. That's probably enough for me. Thank you.
Amazing. so busy, so involved in the community. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, Christopher's also one of the newest members of the steering committee here. So
Yes.
thank you for volunteering to do that too.
Yes.
That's really wonderful.
Thank you, glad to have you.
Thanks, Adrian.
And then we'll get an update from Wendy.
Okay, my name is Wendy Smith, and I am the treasurer of the Milo Baker chapter of California Native Plant Society. Also landowner up in Alexander Valley, so not West County, but little different terrain. And I just wanted to announce that next Tuesday, we're sponsoring a presentation in Santa Rosa by Peter Warner and John Mack. The two of them have been working on revising the Sonoma County Flora, which came out in 1996. Just a book it's out of print, but it is available. It gives all the information about all the plants in Sonoma County. So they've been working on this revision. Peter Warner might be familiar to people because he's done a lot of field trips. He's been around for a long time. And John Mack works for Permit Sonoma and the Resource Department. So two very knowledgeable people who are working on this. So Tuesday at the Luther Burbank Center, that's right, Luther Burbank Art and Garden Center on Yulupa. It starts at 7:30. It's on, if you check it out on our website, it's also available on Zoom. It's a in-person and a Zoom presentation. So hopefully a lot of pretty pictures of flowers as well. And also wanted to announce that we are, as a chapter, we're getting started working on imaging and digitizing the herbarium at Sonoma State. And we've been working with Pepperwood, and we're going to go down to Cal Academy in June, see how they're doing their herbarium specimens. We have about 25,000 specimens at Sonoma State in their herbarium, so it's a big project. But if anyone's interested in that, please let us know. You can email us, any of us, or through the Forest group, it'd be fine too. So that's all I have.
Great, thanks for letting us know about that presentation.
All right.
Okay, Jason.
All right.
How's your spring going?
Spring is sprung. I'm Jason, with Sonoma RTD, Director of Forestry there. We are working on, as others have already mentioned, the Western Cal VTP, but we're also working on a Cal VTP document for the Diamond Mountain Mark West area. Finalizing a few different VTP documents for partners at Audubon Canyon Ranch. We are we're in the middle of implementing, well, really Shelterwood is implementing the project, but we have a Cal VTP document for the work they're doing on their property. And they're planning on starting up some prescribed burns soon, so we're gonna assist with that and make sure that we're doing what we said we would do. Trying to help other smaller organizations also with help for CEQA in different capacities. We're working with Sonoma Valley Fire Department, the Fire Protection District, because they have Measure H funds, and there's a few priority projects that they want to try and do in the Sonoma Valley area, including working with Grove Street Fire Safety Council, who's identified a fuel rate project that's kind of in their neighborhood. It's on the south end of Sonoma Mountain. North Bay Forest Improvement Program, which we'll talk about later. We're starting that program back up. Forest management plans, continuing to work with individual landowners to get them planning assistance and to shepherd people into incentive programs like EQIP, North Bay Forest Improvement Program. We're looking for funding always. The funding landscape has definitely changed. And we're looking for funds to help promote forest management plans and technical assistance Really after mid 2026, 27. It's kind of the fiscal year that we're starting to really be aiming at. Good Fire Lions barbecue, Patty already mentioned, 17 pounds carnitas. So I'll be crock potting that for, 12 hours or whatever in advance, and we'll finish it while we're there. Yeah, I've got at least 2 crock pots, and then I have a mini crock pot in case there's like. I think I've got enough crock pots to cover this. So. Anyway, that'll be a lot of food. And it should be fun. So, yeah, if you're interested, there's a link, please sign up so that. We have an idea of food, although at this point, it's like, I don't know how much more food we're gonna buy, just bring food. Stewardship plan for West County I'm working on right now. I'm gonna talk about the stewardship plan process, what we're doing, kind of concept behind the stewardship plan and the work that we did for the Diamond Mountain area. That'll be after this. I don't have an update on the CAL FIRE grant. We haven't heard anything, which they never told us when they would tell us when that grant came through, so that's actually. I'm hoping that we find out this fiscal year. That would be great if we get this $7 million grant that we applied for. And a lot of that kind of stuff. That CAL FIRE grant, I mean, that concept is really where this stewardship planning process hopefully will be developing the kinds of projects that can fit into a similar grant. So more on that later. Forestry challenge, I just wanted to bring up that there is an existing program that's been going on for 10 years at least, called the Forestry Challenge. It is a high school level technical program that schools can opt into and participate. They have sites throughout California, although none that are terribly local. The only one in the Redwood region is in Santa Cruz right now. There's been a lot of interest from local foresters for years in bringing that program to have a site in Sonoma County. But capacity is pretty limited right now because it's basically like one lady who runs the program. And she might have some assistance, but it just really feels like the limiting factor is personnel. But she said, if there's interest, meaning if we can get schools to participate in Santa Cruz. And if there's enough people who are participating already from our region going to these existing sites, that would be a strong position to possibly start one up here. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that it's a thing, and maybe look into it. And if you know teachers who are interested in that kind of thing, or who might be willing to, there are grants that are available to help send kids to wherever they need to go. But it's cool, you measure trees, you talk about management plans, you really quickly make judgments on just typical forest management type things. And it's a technical course, so I just wanted to throw that out there. Kelly Mathia, I know, is super interested in that as well. So yeah, just putting that out in the world. And then the other thing is, and this is not really, I don't know where we're going with this right now, but so there's the governor's emergency order that was released for fuel projects. And there is some murmuring or discussion that maybe Seaview Road would be a great project area. And so I'm just kind of on standby to see how we can help support the community out there with whatever they need, or we can find funding. Realistically, that's what we need. So that is also on the docket. And that's my report.
Great update. Thank you. I'll do a quick update as well. just wanted to share out about our field tour that we had at the beginning of the month. And Brooke Edwards was our tour guide. It was really great to have him there, and we learned a lot about the work that's happened over the last 3 years at the Monterey Redwoods Regional Park and Open Space Preserve. We had about 20 folks join us, and it was great to have like a forest working group event out in the field. We got to see the shaded fuel break, gully stuffing projects, and the site of the prescribed burn that happened in the fall of 2024. So that was really a sweet event, and I think we're shooting to have at least one kind of field tour like that a year, and then maybe some other type of outdoor event in the fall. So if you have any ideas for future places you want to go on a field trip or want to learn more about with this group, then you can let Adriana or I know. And then another quick update just about something that's coming up later today is Measure H got mentioned, and there's a webinar presentation at 2:30 p.m. today from Fire Safe Sonoma that's going to give a bit more detail on Measure H and what kind of projects they're looking for. So if anyone has time this afternoon, that's coming up. It'll probably be recorded as well, but I'll be zooming into that. And great, that's all for our updates. Thanks everyone for sharing what you're up to. And I did have a question or a few questions for the group too, before we move on. So in the fall, probably early fall, we're gonna have a meeting where the topic is wildlife habitat improvement and how that kind of interfaces with forest management. And so we wanted to have time to hear from the group today. If you have any questions or observations, things that you've experienced on your land or land that you manage, you know, questions that come up about like, what is this practice? How does this affect this wildlife? Or maybe you have a specific species in mind that you're trying to improve the habitat of and you'd like to learn more about that. If anything in that realm, you can let me know so that we can kind of hone the presentations in more to what this group is interested in. And if anyone has anything to share right now, feel free.
I just wanted to say that we had talked about this issue with the steering committee, and they generated a couple questions that they wanted to hear speakers answer. So I don't know if you want to read those off right and then put them on the screen. We can.
Yeah, so the kind of, I can get it on the screen super easily, but I can read them off and put them in the chat. So far, we have curiosity in the effects of forest thinning on wildlife habitat, effects of fire, whether that be wildfire, intentional fire, effects of fencing and different kinds of fences on wildlife. And then folks mentioned being curious about the observed changes over the past 20 to 50 years in the wildlife due to climate change. And also talking about the changes in wildlife habitat over like 200 plus years since European colonization in California. And then lastly, we had an ask like, what would be, for the experts that we bring in, what would be your top 3 recommendations for forest landowners to improve wildlife habitat? That's kind of what we have going so far.
Have you reached out to Stacey Stanish?
No.
Cal Fire's biologist for the state.
Okay, great.
And so she's very familiar with forest management. There was and how it relates especially to bird species and wildlife. There was a study that was done on Boggs Mountain following the 2015 Valley fire that burned through that property pretty severely. So there is information related to the response in some of those areas, and with treatments, control areas, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So she would probably be the statewide expert to ask about that kind of thing.
Lovely. I'll reach out to her. Okay, thanks. Yeah, and if anyone else has tips on which experts you'd like to hear from, we already have a little bit of a list going, but also if this is a really popular topic, we could talk about it at multiple meetings and have different presentations. So yeah.
I'd be curious to know about the effects of invasive plants that come in as a result of treatments and fire.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Anyone else in the room have wildlife feedback? Christopher, do you observe anything interesting on your land, on the work that you do?
Well, I'm always intrigued by, I have all these bird piles. And then I love how the wood rats start to use them as habitat. And then we've got the spotted owl there. We can't start work until the end of July, after they've maybe taken off, so I like that interplay. I'm hearing more about the interplay of different species in our forest is always an interesting topic. When you tend to talk about one species at the exclusion of the interplay of relationships.
That's a great addition. Okay, anyone on Zoom have any feedback or questions that you'd like to learn more about at this upcoming meeting? Okay, great. Well, if you think of anything, you can send me an email. I can put my email in the chat. And we'll keep working on that upcoming topic. Okay, so we'll jump into our presentation. We're going to hear from Jason Wells, Director of Forestry and Registered Professional Forester at Sonoma RCD. And Jason gave us a little preview already, but we're going to talk about the stewardship planning model and some recent examples in Sonoma County. And then I think after that, we'll move into a little NBFIT update.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okie dokie, I'm gonna share my screen here.
I just wonder if this is recorded too, that we can share it out with folks afterwards if anyone wants to see.
This
Yes, okay, great.
I guess we're gonna share a little screen. I made this very quickly, so please don't judge too harshly. Yeah, this is a picture of me outside, not in front of the computer, so you know, happiness. So yeah, anyway, this is just an informal discussion on some of the work that we've been trying to do with communities in our district, really throughout the county. And it's this stewardship planning concept, which is really an opportunity, I think, for the RCDs to engage directly with our communities and get feedback from them and provide them with educational resources related to fire and fuels management and about funding and the types of work that we would be doing. So here is a QR code if anybody is interested. And if you, I'm gonna leave this up for a little bit. So if you QR code this, you can actually, it'll bring you to a Google Drive folder, which actually holds the plan. Eventually, I've got a slide here that talks a little bit about challenges, but one of the challenges that we have right now with the plan is that we don't have a great place for it to live in terms of, you know, how is it a resource that is easily accessible for members of the community to access, but then also usable. And in a way where it doesn't kind of become, you know, a bit of a cluster. Like if we were just to put up a map and say, hey, go and put in where your plan is, you're gonna end up getting a jumbled mess of things. So we're still trying to figure out how best to present this information. And also how best this can be complementary to the CWPP process and not seen as an alternative or trying to compete in that space. I think the message should still be that from a community planning standpoint, we want to encourage people to be working from their house out. We want to be encouraging people to work with their local fire safe council, Fire Safe Sonoma, Firewise community, develop localized, you know, plans of actions to improve their home and near home defensible space. And you know, once they start feeling confident in that kind of work and they start looking out beyond that defensible space, hopefully this is a resource that can help people connect them to other resources, both funding and technical assistance, that would easily be distributed to these Firewise communities or fire safe councils or what have you, to give sort of the real quick 101 on the services that are available to people. So I'm gonna move on, so hopefully if you were interested, you've already got this on. So it worked, very good. So this stewardship planning process is something that we've been talking about for a while, and we ended up getting funding through a grant that Fire Safe Sonoma had applied for as the grantee. And so that funding was provided through CAL FIRE and their wildfire prevention grant program. I feel like dates are hard to remember at this point, and that must have been like 2021, something, 2020, 2021, something like that. Anyway, just been going on for a while at this point, but you know, the deliverables in that grant were to work with the community to identify 3 shaded fuel break locations within our project area, which I think it shows on one of these. This is here's where it actually shows the map of where we're at. So within this project boundary, the idea was to identify 3 different shaded fuel break locations, work with the community to get access agreements and to get the ability to actually go and do a multi-parcel project. And to work with them to develop, we were going to develop a CalVTP project specific analysis so that we could cover CEQA for fuels and vegetation management within the project area for 10 years. And we were going to develop this stewardship plan as a way to pipeline projects that could be implemented with CEQA coverage coming under that CalVTP document. So we hosted a series of meetings. That's what these are. I probably should have had this following it, but we had a lot of meetings. I don't remember exactly how many, but they were very well attended, as you can see in these photos, maps, and we had, you know, a good opportunity to engage with the community and talk to them about the kinds of work that we were doing. Or that we were interested in doing, realistically, right? So there were mailers that went out. Yeah,
How
please.
many people are involved? How many parcels are out? How many land owners?
Oh God, if I remember, there's at least 200 and some odd landowners that are in this project area.
Wow.
I don't remember exactly how many parcels there are. There are certain areas where it's more dense, right? And this is kind of like, this is a good snapshot, I think, of a lot of Sonoma County, in that here's this 10,000 acre area. And there are some landowners who control 300 to 400 acres of it. And there are some people who are in there with a half acre or a 1 acre parcel. And a lot of our dense areas are grouped together. And then you have large parcels. I mean, in the grand scheme of the world and in the grand scheme of California, 300 acres is not a large parcel, but for Sonoma County, that's a big land ownership. So it just goes to show the importance of having to do these kinds of discussions in advance, because even our big parcels aren't that big. And you can see from, I mean, it's kind of hard to see, I guess, on this because it doesn't show all the lines, but like these are all parcel boundaries. So to do a project that effectively, you know, mitigates or lessens fire severity or intensity, really, you're going to be dealing with a lot of people. And needing permission slips from all of them, because it's all private land, and that in itself is a full-time job. So we sent out mailers to everyone who was involved. There's 200 and some odd landowners that we in this area. We received 90 responses, which is pretty good. And the responses at the time were very general. It was just asking people, what of these kinds of activities are you interested in? which, you know, I feel like we've learned a lot from this process, but there are definitely questions or things that we could have done differently to maybe solicit better responses from people. I do think the biggest problem was that we didn't have the stewardship plan done in advance of our outreach efforts, so there was confusion as to like, what is this thing supposed to be? Purpose of the plan. So this is ripped from the plan, because again, I threw this together pretty quickly, but essentially it's supposed to assist in the development of a community supported approach to forest stewardship and wildfire risk reduction, improving public safety, fire control access, you know, and implement forest practices that restore and enhance healthy and climate resilient wildlife ecosystems. It serves as a guiding document for the community to better understand all of the tools that are available to them, both funding and technical assistance, to improve conditions on the ground. So, as we were developing this, and this was sort of influenced by another major planning process that we were working on at the time, we developed a watershed plan for the Wall River watershed. And as part of that planning process, they being the Bureau of Reclamation, who was our funder for that program, they distinctly had the plan separated from an action plan. And that's essentially what we're trying to do in here. And anyone who has an individual forest management plan, you'll notice that there's a section that talks about planned management activities. It comes up with a budget. It has line items for where are we doing this work? Is this a unit B or unit C? What's the timeline? I'm hoping to do this kind of work, and when's the follow up, which is just kind of basic, you know, planning sorts of things. So what we were trying to think of is, well, how do we do that at a collaborative approach for multiple parcels at a community level to try to figure out how would they do that and how would we track and monitor? Okay, you got that project funded, that was done, how are we going to do maintenance? When should we be doing maintenance? You know, and there may or may not be funds for maintenance either. So part of this community building has to be that discussion of what are the technical resources or that we're going to use to continue to maintain these things. It's working with fire departments who need training opportunities, or working with the Good Fire Alliance, or Prescribed Burn Association, you know, or working through incentive programs that are existing and available, like EQIP, to provide not all the money, but a cost share for someone to be able to maintain brush and small things that are coming back into their field that they've established. So the stewardship plan is really an educational document. It's supposed to talk about the why. Why are we doing these kinds of things? How do we do these kinds of things? What are the support tools for people to be able to do this kind of work? And then that's something that hopefully these communities, Firewise communities, what have you, can have at the ready to provide information to the new initiative. Someone buys a home in the area. Once we've talked about home hardening and defensible space and the things that we need to be focusing on. Well, hey, the community is looking at this ridge, and we've been looking at this ridge for a long time. And we feel the need to do that. Well, this is why we feel the need to do that. Here's the information here. Some of the basic things. So yeah, and then the potential project plan, which again, we don't really know where it lives yet. This document states that it lives in the appendices of the stewardship plan, but again, where's the stewardship plan? We've been having discussions about hosting it on our website possibly, and then maybe having a story map sort of format for where this information could be broken down into easier to digest bits. And that through that, perhaps we could host this kind of information. These are the contents of the plan. This is just straight from the table of contents, ripped, you know, for the kinds of things that we talk about. So for that planning area that was on the other map, we're talking describing the planning area, cultural history, geology and soils, ecological communities, fuel types and treatment tools, maintenance of the projects, community planning, sources of funding. The importance of still developing property land level management plans. So I want to make that very clear that this is not supposed to be dictating to anyone, right? The kind of management action that we're going to do to your property. It's that this should be something that is beneficial at this community level, that and the kinds of work really that the RCD would be supporting. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have your own individual goals, needs, directive, objectives. If you're the golden eagle person, that's what you care about more than anything else. You know what? We'll try to find you funds for golden eagle habitat, or replace golden eagle with your preferred species of choice. So, roads management, roads are the most damaging impact from most forest lands and from forest management activities. So we talked about the importance of having a road system, both for being able to do any of this kind of work, but also the importance of maintaining your road system and understanding like that some roads are more important than others from a management standpoint. Water courses in riparian area management, we talked a bit about that. Fire as a physical process is a huge section. Silviculture is a large section. And then just sort of a page on the background for CEQA, what CEQA is, how this document ties into that. And yeah, I'm surprised that there was enough. So potential project plan, projects are developed over time with community input. Basically the idea is that we would be developing projects based on the things that were identified in the plan. These are the kinds of things that we want to do. And then the RCD can provide technical assistance, or consulting forester can provide technical assistance to do the kinds of things that are identified. Once that project is identified and kind of hammered out, the RCDs can assemble them. Hopefully it's on that list, right? And then we can assemble that into a grant proposal. So similar to what we had done with the recent CAL FIRE grant, where we had 3 different community groups, including the Diamond Mountain area, throughout Sonoma County. And we also had a few other projects that had come to us from that had CEQA completed and had been working with the local fire departments. We pulled together projects, high priority projects from 5 different areas, and we put them all together in one $7 million grant, applied for funding to go and implement all of those individual projects. So this would hopefully be a pipeline for doing more projects like that. And the other thing is that this would provide a list of projects that can be fed into local CWPPs, which I think is an important component to this, because we need to be communicating with one another in terms of our partners who are doing work here in this fuel management space.
Sorry, what's that stand for?
The Community Wildfire Protection Plan, and it is a nationally recognized planning program for wildfire emergency preparedness. So it discusses things like access routes and egress, and how you would leave an area, move people out during an emergency, infrastructure and other kinds of high priority projects for the at that high level to be thinking about. But my hope is that this is very low in terms of ground level planning that we're kind of doing. It doesn't necessarily have to be the highest and best priority from the firefighter standpoint to get put on the list, but we need to also try and figure out how do we prioritize projects. Sometimes though, just in the grant world, you don't get to prioritize projects. Sometimes there's a grant that comes out and it's for that specific thing, and if we just had a list of projects, we could say like, oh, well, they were interested in doing the large video debris project. for somewhat improvement. And I foresee this as being a thing where eventually we could be putting those kinds of projects on there as well. Road sediment reduction project that have been identified in this area. And those are not necessarily things that fit in with the CWPP, but when there will be a lot of projects that do fit in. So.
Yeah, kind of another way of looking at this is we're making a bank of projects that can be, of all different kinds. That can be ready to go for funding opportunities when they come out, because I mean, we've heard many times from Roberta, from Kim, from Marshall, from all of our kind of local leaders that, we have a problem in that we have a great opportunity come up and we just react to it and we're like, oh my gosh, there's funding available. We need to start, creating a project that we can get funding for. It happens all the time. It's been happening since the dawn of time in the grant world. But everyone's been telling us we need to be ready ahead of time, have your ideas already developed, spend time fleshing them out, know what the budget is, and then you can be ready. So this is basically creating that whole bank of projects, or it's the start of it at least, and we can keep building on it, but it's a good start. And you have your water projects for the water opportunities, and forestry, silviculture projects for the forest health opportunities, etc. So you're ready to go, right?
Find a grant that fits the project.
Thank you.
Make a project that fits it. That's it. So. Anyway, current issues, again, there's not really a place that we have identified perfectly for it to live, although Genevieve, our forestry project manager, is working right now on a draft for a story map, which we'll see how all this kind of works out. But I'm hoping that eventually we could just have a link to where this thing lives, and then maybe that link could go to Fire Safe Sonoma's website, where hopefully these firewise communities, fire safe councils are checking, that site regularly, and that this is sort of like a seamless handoff once we get from the defensible space area into the wildland management area. And then this project really should not interfere with the CWPP. It needs to be complementary to that CWPP process. So coming up with a bunch of prioritization that is not in line with what's in the CWPP, at least for projects that are identified that fit, within the CWPP, is probably not a good idea. That's another thing I didn't really write in this yet, is that it's definitely my intent that this stewardship plan eventually branches out beyond fire and forest management into more of the things that the RCD does. But we were funded to do very specifically fire and fuels management, and we also didn't want to make this super overwhelming. So we're trying to focus in one thing right now, and then once people get engaged and involved in that sort of thing, we can let them know, hey, by the way, we do a whole load of other things. Rainwater catchment, large debris installations. There's all kinds of other agricultural and natural resource improvements that we can have. Now I think it is time. So there's that. You didn't already bring it up. This is the management plan. It's got all those things I said it did. And how many pages is it? I can't see because it says stop share.
83.
83 pages. I think that includes appendices. Because I think we were shooting for 40 pages or under.
It does include the appendices.
Yeah, we were trying to make this digestible. So this is like, with pictures, it's 44 pages prior to citations and that kind of thing. So not too bad. And hopefully someone who's interested in this kind of thing, you don't have to read this thing front to back. You should hopefully be able to zoom in, oh, I live in this Sharp Road area. Here's a good descriptor of the location of the Sharp Road, sub-planning area, parcel sizes and issues that are related to that, slopes, heavy equipment use, discussions on soils, how soils fit in with making decisions in terms of, should this be a Douglas fir woodland, or maybe this should be an oak woodland, because it's really poor site. So, a lot of that's discussed here in this ecological communities and fuel types. And it talks about general issues that are found in this area within each of these ecological communities. And how fuels management, forest management, what have you, may affect them or may be needed. Mediterranean oak borer is coming up here. So anyway, that's that. I don't know how I am on time, but I also know that the North Bay Forest things. Sure. How am
Oh,
I?
yeah, we have plenty of time for questions, discussion. Yeah, any curiosities, folks are coming?
Yeah, I have some, I just want to just get, this is Dee, I just want to thank Jason and all of the landowners in that area, because for years they've been trying to get grants to do this type of planning. Yes, they want to go forward faster, but we want to have them do that too. But Jason, this plan will help the other landowners not yet engaged to understand the seriousness of which their agency and nonprofit partners are, and how grounded and ready we are to help in the next step. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I look forward to, seeing it I guess, how am I going to see this, and can I make a copy?
Well, let's go back to page 1 here. If you have your phone, you can open up your photo or your camera and hold it up to this little doohickey, and then a link will pop up, and then you click on that link and it will take you to a website, which is a Google Drive. So it's a cloud storage space, and in that there's a file that is basically just this.
Oh, could we link it in the?
I'm
chat?
going to try that. Can you leave it on there for a minute more?
Yeah,
Thank you, thank you.
yeah, that seems like a good,
Yes.
we'll just leave it on here for a while. In case anybody's interested.
I
Any
am.
other thoughts?
Okay, here I go. I'm going to try it. Okay, let's see here.
Put the link in the chat in a few seconds too.
Question,
Yeah,
so does this document include some information description on the whole community engagement process? Right, so I see there's lots of technical stuff, I'm trying to get more at the social community process.
not really. There certainly was a long community engagement process that happened concurrently with the writing of this stewardship. Plan itself does not describe how to organize or what to talk about in these meetings. I also think that we learned some things from those meetings, but we are not by any means expert level at putting these things on, so this was like a first go. And I do foresee doing this multiple times.
Because when you say stewardship plan, that immediately for me conjures up people.
Yep.
People involved in some kind of collaboration, co-management, what structure are they using to manage the plan, the implementation of the plan? What are their feedback loops around how they're working together, what they're achieving or not achieving together, all of that, which I still think is a big, interesting piece. Maybe Patty's writing up the definitive case study on the community side of all this. Because it keeps coming up is want to get adjoining parcels working together. But that includes community social processes, not just the technical side.
I actually have been slowly working on, as we've been developing this, what's working so that there is a guideline for
Like
us.
best practices,
Yes.
that would be great.
And Patty was brought on towards the end of this particular planning process. We are working on this for West County. And, that's gonna be working, Safe West County and the Bohemian Collaborative. But it's at this level, like that plan that I'm working on right now is looking at a large area. And really just trying to describe the areas, describe some of the thought processes that might go into collaborations within these sub-regions. But then it's ultimately, it's up to the people who are there to be determining as to like, where are they working? Now, I don't want this to be seen as, oh, you drew a line on the sub-region, so you shouldn't be working with that neighborhood there because your parcel's over here. Half the parcels get cut in half in these planning documents, It's just supposed to be something to be thinking about. Specifically, like we can go back and look at this map. Hopefully everybody now has had a chance to be on the stewardship plan here, but like this area is the Gates Road area. It's very dense in terms of small parcels, lots of houses. So in our management planning process, we've kind of carved out that area and we said, this is the area that's very dense. There's a lot of houses. Prescribed fire is going to be very challenging in this area. It's going to require a lot of discussion, and anything that you do is going to be taking place on 6+ properties. Plus there's homes, and none of them are hardened. And so like, it's just a different discussion about how we're implementing prescribed fire in this area than it is in this area where there's far fewer structures, larger land ownerships, easier for maybe a 1 or 2, maybe 3 people to work together. But in this Gates Road project, they are surrounded by some pretty large landowners. So we discussed like, okay, well, maybe putting in a fuel break on this is called Back Ridge. Maybe that's a high priority for Gates Road. And there's this Chalfont Road over here, which is actually something that's come up from the county as a high priority project for them. And the reason being is that on the interior of this area, these houses are very close together and the access to get in there is poor. It's a it's a 1-car wide road with a few pull-outs that goes in there. So like, that's all part of the discussion of, okay, this is probably a high priority. To try to do some kind of treatment in and around there. And we know that when it comes to structure preparedness, home hardening and work done within 100 feet. That's the most important thing when it comes to saving. But the home will also have an impact on the environment. And I think this document takes the ability to talk about that space. You talk to any firefighter, it's always lives, property, and the environment. And this is just an opportunity, I think, to be able to speak more to the environment side. And why are we doing these treatments? And what is the importance of moderating fire behavior so that we get good fire, we don't get October.
Catastrophic.
Yeah, so. Are there any other thoughts, questions, whatever?
I know you talked about the project list sort of in theory, but do you guys have a project list started for this thing?
Do we actually have something started?
That's
like
what
CWC
this meeting was just about a couple of weeks ago. The
That was
community got
CWP.
together to update the CWPP. They're developing a list of projects that came out of that day and a prioritization. And we'll be working with them.
This was their CWPP.
That list exactly.
Okay.
Results.
Yeah, because I saw the survey results and I was like, oh, it's like you're still polling people for their interests and what matters to them.
Yeah, those were earlier meetings. This meeting was just held on the 3rd. Yeah, so, and it was great. Over 40 people,
Oh my gosh.
over 40 neighbors came. There were 10 topic experts. Everybody was engaged for 5 hours. I mean, it was a really exciting meeting.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. 5 hours is a long time to keep 40 people for. It's
Yep.
amazing.
It was, and
It is a very.
they were there the whole time.
That's amazing.
It was
Actually,
terrific, yeah.
that really speaks to the interest of the community in this plan happening.
And they had people show up that didn't register and had never been involved before, like about 8 people
Great.
that were brand new to the
Excellent.
process. So it was, yeah, the organizers were really excited too about that.
Great.
Who are you, who's talking? I'm sorry, I can't see you.
Patty Aaron with the Sonoma RCD.
Oh, okay.
I'm the community engagement specialist for the RCD.
Okay, okay. Well, I'm trying to use that little icon there to get the plan and I can't. So should I call you, Jason, or what should I do? I don't know how to do it
You
very
can
well.
call. Did we throw the stewardship?
Yeah.
We also threw the stewardship plan link in the chat. So you should be able at this point.
Oh.
Just
Oh,
go into
well,
the
let's
chat.
try that. Okay,
And it's this link right here.
okay. I got it.
It's
Do that.
stewardship.
Oops. Okay, hold on a second. Oh, it's
Oh.
now up
Just
in
not
my,
really.
it's
I
now
have
up
the
in my
chat.
Google Drive. It's in my Google Drive. Yay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good. I have a question about, when folks wanna use this in the future, would they, you know, maybe they'll encounter it online somewhere. Would their next step be to get in touch with the RCD and say like, what's going on here? I wanna know more about this.
I think that's probably the cleanest way to be doing it, is to have it be an informational piece. But then people should be connecting to the RCD. As opposed to the idea of like, I feel like part of the CWPP process. Where it was just open to planners. Sometimes you go into that map that was available. And it's a hodgepodge of professional versus guesstimation in terms of where their project area is. Sometimes people have these huge circles. You know, they're like, here's my project area. And I'd like it to be more refined than that. And you can tell when people like have GIS and put their project in there, and there's like very sharp defined corners that are 100 feet from a road. And I think that that's the kind of mapping that we would want to do, and just recognizing that that requires a level of not only technical knowledge, but also like having programs that can do that kind of thing. I think it makes the most sense to just have people come to the RCD and say, hey, I've been talking to my neighbor, we read this plan, we're engaged, we think that there's a possible project up here, why don't you come on out for a day? And we can go out there, project, hash out what we would do. I always like when landowners just draw on maps, print out a paper map. You know, draw on the project area that you think on a paper map, and we can workshop from the paper map what it's supposed to look like, and then we can have someone take that paper map and turn it into a professional product that lives on our shared, you know, Esri based. And this image right here is from Regenerative Forest Solutions website. And this is the sort of thing that you would get in a story map, is like an interactive map embedded, and we could update projects as they come along. The other thing that was like, that came up a lot in our planning process, and just an issue, I think, especially with some of our more engaged neighborhoods, like there's a lot of grants that are getting talked about, projects that the county is interested in this particular thing. And it's extremely confusing for people who are not, it's confusing for people who are literally working in this area, in this space. It's hard to keep track of what's going on. And it's almost impossible for just a normal person to know, what are you talking about when they say, oh, there's the Calistoga Road which is this end here. There's the Calistoga Road Edge Management Project that we're doing. Well, is it the one that we completed in 2022? Is it the one that was implemented last year? Is it planning? Is it maintenance? Is it like, sometimes there are grants or projects that people hear about because we're applying for a grant. We don't get the grant. And people don't hear the response. They don't hear, we didn't get the grant. And then people keep talking about that project, about this thing. They don't have any idea about, well, what happened in the other one? You know, and it gets really confusing. I mean, like, between the county and their projects that they have identified in this area, the RCD's working on projects that are in this area. You've got the local Firewise community and Fire Safe Council is putting together things. They're working with, you know, Conservation Corps where they just like getting stuff done. And my God, it's like there's 6 or 7 active projects that are happening like in this project area, basically at any time, or ones that had just finished. And so if we could figure out a way for someone to be able to find out what the heck are you talking about? Or if we could figure out a way when we're talking about a project, before they go out, start doing the knocking on doors and getting the community all involved and thinking about it, that we have it at a map scale. That you could go to your neighbors and you could say, this is the thing that we're talking about. And you could hope, like, especially if they have like a tablet, they could actually just be out there and say, like, here's what we're doing. Here's the thing, you're in the area. This is the one that we're talking about, not the one that's directly adjacent to it, but also on the same road. You know, especially when you just talk about things like, oh, it's the Calistoga Road project. It's like, good God. So people were very confused. And I'm hoping that we can provide a little more clarity, hopefully, maybe. But that also requires kind of funding and like long-term funding, not the kind of funding that grants are great at doing, but really like sustained implementation. And it wouldn't require that much. Just enough for somebody to get in things.
Question for you, Jason.
Yeah, please.
This is Kelly Mathia. Are we looking to try and find the head or the lead for all of this information? So that we have one central source, either in our county or beyond our county, so that we're all not duplicating efforts? Is that what I'm hearing we're trying to do?
That's
But
not
takes
necessarily
funding?
that's not necessarily what we were trying to do with this project. But that is, I think, in large part, what a lot of the conversation is right now with the county's landscape resilience TAC. Is that the name of that? You're gonna have to help me out with.
Oh, the big planning effort that they're doing,
Oh, there's like 5 TACs, and one of them is
yeah,
the
it's the Sonoma County.
General.
Well, it's different than the
It's
general
different than the
plan,
general.
actually, which is the general plan update, I think is happening now too, so that's confusing, but it's the Sonoma County Wildfire Resilience Program, so it's like they're looking at building a program specific.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about.
That, I believe, is what I'm talking about, is this resilience program, and within that resilience program, they currently have 5 technical advisory committees that are focused on different avenues. You know, one of them is on landscape resilience, which is really the same focus as this particular thing, and I do think that that is something that has come up as a question quite a bit, is that there is not really a defined lead.
Right.
The county doesn't have any one agency that is very clearly the like most well suited to direct outreach and engagement with landowners to do new project development and oversight. Dee, your hand is up.
Yes, want to comment that TALS, Taking Action for Living Systems, is currently working with a few landowners, but we're doing a draft to perhaps form a cooperative among landowners so that throughout the county, so that they can keep up with each other and with the agencies, et cetera, and to apply for private money to match the public grants. So we also are in the business of finding a structure so there isn't that duplication and confusion, and also to bring them into the reality that the landowners are the most important people in this effort, because they have to want to opt in, and we so want to design something that will make it as easy and friendly and fast as possible. Thank you.
But Kelly, just to tie a bow on this one, I think this is really just more of a thing. And this is something that I feel like have learned while we were doing this. Like, what was the purpose of the stewardship plan? I don't think we had the answer when we started this. And for me, what seems to be the most sensical thing is that this is a tool that can bring people to the RCD for the resources that we do. If there were to become another agency or entity whose role it was to be the central authority to do this kind of planning at a county-wide level or a regional level, like if we were to make instead of Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority, if we had a Sonoma Wildfire Prevention Authority, and that was their mandate and they were well funded, you know, I think what we have here, we could hand off to them.
Okay.
But
Okay.
But for right now,
We're learning.
It's just kind of makes sense for it to just be work with the RCD.
Right. And I appreciate the RCD's guidance and support on this, because this is a great step into forest stewardship. It really is
Yeah, we
important.
want to encourage people to be doing work. And so this is hopefully a 40-page document. I mean, depending on how fast you read, you can read this thing in an hour. You know, it's got big pictures, that's why it's 44 pages. So like, I feel like you can read it. But like, it's not supposed to be super duper scary. And the feedback that I got from the folks who were just doing that CWPP meeting for the Diamond Mountain project was that they brought the stewardship plan with them, and that they found that it was very helpful in terms of quickly being able to synthesize information for people to give them the broad scale picture, which is perfect. And that's like exactly what I would, that's as much as I could hope for.
Yeah.
This project.
I have another comment about the purpose of this document too, is that we often have community members coming to us saying, help, we need help with our fire risk. We know we want money, we know we want help, but we don't actually know what we need to do. And we don't even really know where to start. We don't know what the big picture is, or what is happening on my neighbor's property, or the neighbor that I can't see. I just am worried that, you know, there's this hazard all around me. And so I think that this planning effort is also doing that. It's creating that baseline of like, here's where we are, here's the big picture. We're all getting in touch with each other. We're talking to RCD, fire department, fire safe council, biologists, you know, the gamut of people that we feel like we need to talk to make an informed decision. And now we have the groundwork to decide, right? I feel like that's going to fill that gap for people.
Yeah,
too.
I think so. And I mean, ultimately, in my opinion, the thing that's gonna determine like feel like a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to think, well, how do we prioritize these projects? They don't even have projects to start with, right? And like, if I were looking at this map and I was gonna say, how would I prioritize a project? Project's only gonna happen in the green area, right? These are the people who have participated, who've responded, who are vocal. You could legitimately think about getting a permission slip from these people. You could engage directly with them. So even if a project right here might be the highest and best, you know, all the models, everybody points to a project right here being, this is great. I think that modeling is helpful for like knowing where to target direct outreach. But right now, these guys are on board. So like, what am I gonna apply for this year, next year? I'm gonna apply for something probably in the green. And if the model's telling me that this is actually the best place because it's 0.2 miles away from every great resource that the county wants to save, that's awesome. But what you need to do is you need to give us money to go and knock on doors, literally, and do direct outreach in those high priority areas. And unless you get these people green, you will not do a project in there, regardless of the, you know, how great having a project in that area is gonna be.
That's good. Yeah, I'm thinking, speaking of projects, future projects that landowners might wanna do, we could start talking about NBFIP a little bit.
Okay, Forestry program.
I know that Sarah Kaiser is joining us on Zoom, who's involved, Adriana and Jason also in the room. So maybe Sarah, do you wanna talk about your role in this project? Sure.
I do have,
Oh, yeah, did you have things to share?
no, I just, the only thing from the North Bay Forest Improvement Program that I brought were the prescription cap rates that are, you know, up in the air right now, but gives you an idea.
Okay, great.
Things that we're doing.
And I just wanted to say one thing, Jason, we're working on a vegetation management plan for our Mark West Regional Park. And hopefully we'll begin implementing some projects there this fall. We'll see how that goes, but and we're going to be focusing on the Red Hill to Barham Ridgeline, Shaded Fuel Break area, pod that CAL FIRE has delineated. So hopefully we'll start having some projects implemented out on the ground that could also act as a demonstration project for nearby landowners, bring them out there, see what we've done, see how much it costs, and hopefully get them a little bit further along the way of implementing projects on their property. So let's definitely be in touch, Jason, as things move along for our Mark West property.
Great. Yeah, demonstrations are always very helpful, and especially when it's right in your backyard, it makes it hard to not go check it out.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so let's see, I think Sarah, do you wanna talk a little bit about your involvement in NBFIP, and then Jason and Adriana can also share.
Sure. And I sadly have to jump off a little early, and I realized at the beginning I didn't introduce myself thoroughly. So Sarah Kaiser, I'm with Conservation Works, the senior grant manager, and I am the program manager and the grant administrator for the North Bay Forest Improvement Program, which is a 4-county project, a regional project for forest health. And we're talking about that today, but we also do the RCPP program, and we also were the project lead, the ones that had submitted the grant for the forest health grant that we are all have no idea when we'll hear about. And I actually, while Jason was talking about it, went onto eCivis to just see if we had any updates, and there are no updates. So I'll let you know as soon as we know. But the North Bay Forest Improvement Program, we officially have partners in contract, and we hope to have applications out in probably the month of July. If you're interested in the North Bay Forest Improvement Program, if you know anyone that is, the best thing to do is to go to our website, which is northbayforestimprovement.com. And maybe Adriana or somebody on here could drop it into the chat really quickly. And join our newsletter, because we're going to send all of our updates of the newsletter with, like Jason said, we're starting to kind of look at cap rate sheets. We're looking at all these things as we begin the rollout of these projects, and we'll be doing some adaptations. But you also know when applications are available, when we have our batching periods, and you'll be able to reach out to me directly to ask questions. So I'm here to help do that and to be kind of the one who updates you on a lot of stuff, but then we have our experts like Jason and Adriana who will be helping you with the actual implementation of those projects.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah.
Jason, do you want to share a bit about the technical side of things?
Well, long-term listeners here at the Forest Working Group will remember that this program did exist before. And we operated it for at least 2 years. And the general idea is that it is an incentives program, which is a little different than a grant. So whereas grants do not always require a cost share, some of them do. This one is basically, it's a reimbursement program. So we pay a flat rate based on the project that you were doing. It's available for small landowners, so those are landowners between 5 and 5,000 acres. Forest land, these are forest land projects, so it's thinning and the follow-up from that thinning work, so that can be chipping or pile burning or masticating is sort of a one and done. It's thinning out at the same time. The only thing it doesn't allow for is broadcast burning. And again, because we're starting this program back up, our funding sources are different than they were when we started. There are some possibilities, I would say, in terms of things that were like hard-nosed when we started the program. That may or may not be a hard no anymore. So we've had discussions about like, what other things could we offer? Could we do prescribed burn prep? I don't have an answer for you, but just know that the program is sort of a pilot. It's dynamic, but the overall gist of it is that we have practices that are very similar to EQIP, but generally pay more than EQIP does. For thinning, planting, pruning, brush management, that kind of thing. I think Sarah mentioned already that we were thinking about when we were talking about solicitation for new projects. The internal discussions we've been having is that even though we're getting a real late start on the first one, we're thinking about doing 2 solicitations this year. And then we would go back to our regular, roughly 6-month apart solicitations. We have $5 million through 2027, so whatever that timeline looks like. So 2.5 years. So that's a lot of money, and you're gonna have to spend all that money in that amount of time. So that means that we will. I think our first round coming back might not be a huge spend down, but I think every round after that, once we get up and going and kind of grease the wheels and prepare our staff to be able to handle a lot of people and need and whatnot, I think for like our second round through coming up, we're probably going to be looking at like $800,000 plus type funding rounds would be my guess. So, and who knows what things look like at 2027 funding. I mean, Prop 4 is coming up, so we could be considering applying for funding for a future to continue this sort of program. Thoughts, questions, concerns?
That's the cost share.
What is the cost share? You want to know the value you mean, or do you want to know what a cost share is?
50/50, 25/75.
So these things never are done that way. It's not based on what you spent. It's a flat rate. So let me show.
It's like your NRCS contract.
It's just like your NRCS.
Same.
Yeah, depending on the practice, you get a flat reimbursement rate and the rest is on you. You can use your own labor. you
These
know,
are our,
to complete it, or you can hire a contractor.
these were the rates that we established. Right at the last time we offered this basically. So this is from 2 years ago. And I zoom in. The share is in there, but I'm gonna guess 150. How's that? Okay, so again, at the time, we had a requirement to have a split between disadvantaged communities. These are census-based disadvantaged communities that looked at a census block and stated whether or not you were above or below 60% of the statewide median average. That's what created a disadvantaged community. Disadvantaged communities could apply for an 80% cost share rate. Normal cost share rates were 60%, and we actually offered a points incentive, meaning in our ranking criteria, if you took less money, we would prioritize your project. So if you went for a 40%, you received a few additional points, but you also received less money. The cap rate is the cost that we assume that a competent professional could do the work as required in the contract on a per acre basis, generally, except for reforestation, which is on a per plant basis. So we assumed that lop and scatter basically were just the felling of small stem trees under 4-inch DBH. We assume that that should cost $1,800 an acre. And then you receive cost share based on it. If you were to take this money, or if you were to take this and you wanted to instead do pile burning, we have a different rate for that. It's a follow-up rate. So you go down to the follow-up treatments. And that one there, the 1,800 was based on light fuels. So you would still be in the light range. So we assume to pile and burn that material would cost an additional $1,400 an acre, bringing you up to what were we at this point, almost $3,000 an acre. And so you would receive a cost share, either 60% or 40%, unless you were a disadvantaged community, which means 80%. We could also pay you just to pile them and to not burn the piles. Sometimes it was easier to do that from a CEQA standpoint, and sometimes it's easier to do that from the fact that one of the important things about the contracts for the North Bay Forest Improvement Program is, unlike EQIP, our contracts we are trying to have completed in 1 year. So we're funded by a grant. We're not funded by the Farm Bill. So our grant will be gone before the Farm Bill will be gone. So we're not allowed to have, like, we can't have a 3 or 5 year contract. This whole grant program will be gone in 3 years. So we are on 1 year turnaround from the point where you enter into your contract to the point where hopefully you are. Sometimes we ran into a situation where someone signed up for pile burn, they weren't able to burn their piles, so we instead paid them for you piled it and you didn't burn it, right? Walked away. This does not have anything to do with NRCS's recent official walking away from burning piles. Our chip masticate rate is the same. It is more expensive to chip material than it is to masticate material. This was purposeful. We're probably low on our estimation for chipping, and we're probably a little high on our estimation mastication. I would rather you not chip your whole property. It's expensive, and I don't think the government should be paying for you to do the most expensive treatment across your entire property. Whereas mastication, this is a really good rate for mastication. So, reforestation, this is what throws off our stuff right now, because this is clearly not a per acre rate. This is based on per tree. So planting light, medium, or heavy, I think that depends on the density and also the axis of planting. This was ripped from CFIP, the California Forest Improvement Program, which is CAL FIRE's incentives program. And we liked this idea. So that's That's how we stole what the rates were. So really, this has more to do with access for planting. If it's great access, we figure it costs $1.36 to plant a tree. And that's assuming it's a conifer tree. And honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, it's probably a little low for redwood. And that's probably dead on for Douglasburg. Yeah, because we don't also have, yeah, that's supposed to come both. Oh, no, look at that right there. Additional cost per redwood seedling. God, it's like we thought of everything. So we added 60 cents on to bring you up to nearly $2 per tree planted on easy ground for planting redwood. And that's probably what it costs to plant one out of 10,000 trees. If Kelly, if you disagree, let me know. Because I know that you're out here. I know you're out here looking at these kinds of costs and at these kinds of projects. You're muted right now, but I'm just letting you know.
You could hear me talking to you even though I was. I
Yeah,
just forgot to unmute. I'll be looking at this closely. Thank you for pulling this together.
yeah, so once we settle on what these rates are, because again, this is 2 years old, it will be on the website. And it, like, before you even apply, all of this information will be available to you. But these are the rates that we pay. And the difference, I think, between CFIP and our program is that CFIP claims that they cover 90% of the costs of some of these things. Locally, folks have always said it's never been 90% of the cost. We don't claim to cover 90% of the cost. We claim to cover 60% of the cost. And so I think our cap rates are more closely identified with what the real costs are to do this kind of work in our area. And then we just say that we pay. So everybody's aware from the get-go, you're not getting 90% paid for, you're getting 60% paid for. And our rates are a little bit better than what CAL FIRE ends up paying. But CAL FIRE thinks that they're paying 90%. And they're definitely. So, questions?
Yeah, I was, well, comment, I was thinking about, so we're in the process now, we are about to start looking at NBFIP again and thinking about how to improve it for the fall, or well, summer round. And, it seems like, well, we might have time available to meet with partners, and do kind of like a little focus group on NBFIP and get some feedback from you all on the rates, the practices, any changes that you guys might want to see. For those of you who have participated, it would be nice to hear from past participants what went well, what didn't go well. For potential implementers, like how do these numbered rates look to you, the time frame, all of that. So
Yeah, I think that would be targeted to people who already participated in the program.
I think that would be great, yeah, and then maybe the potential contractors too, to take a look at things as well, because yeah, it seems like we have time now to have those kinds of conversations and just, you know, get your input on making this next version as great as it can be. So yeah, so maybe we'll be reaching out in a little bit for those who have strong thoughts or have experience with this to take a look at it again with us.
Just a quick comment. This is Kelly.
Yeah.
I just got a request from Mendocino RCD to update what they think are the hourly rates, et cetera, for projects. So I'm pretty sure they'll be sharing that with all the RCDs. Were you aware of that
Yeah.
request coming out from Adam?
That's what he's looking for, is he's trying to update these rates. I'll tell you the way that I went about putting these rates together was a lot more intensive than doing a survey. It was really thinking about labor costs, reasonable and acceptable hours to be spending doing this kind of work from a competent person. So like the questions I was asking weren't as much, how much does this cost? It's how much does fuel cost? How much does a person doing this labor cost? Looking at comparables. So these were actual projects that were implemented, or at least bids, real bids. and then making some estimations based off of that. And I did that for the first round, and then these dollars are actually 20% higher than what I had originally come up with, because I don't know if you remember, in 2023, we were undergoing an extreme period of inflation.
Yeah.
Like during. So we just hit it with like 20% more. And I think right now, what Adam's trying to do is to find out whether or not this is still adequate, or
Right.
if things have changed. So. Yeah.
Great update. Any more questions from our attendees on any of it or comments?
I'm gonna
The
take
other thing
off
I'll say
my,
is that we have professional services, we pay for our PFs. And I will just say that the quality of the work increases when you hire a professional forester to work with you.
Kelly, you were gonna say something?
oh, I was gonna say something, sorry. I'm gonna take my ERS hat off and put my Oddfellows hat back on. Oddfellows has been earmarking money for the last few years so that we can actually take advantage of a cost share program. So I will be contacting you shortly from Oddfellows to see what we can do about doing maybe some thinning or some other types of projects. So
That's a great reminder, that there's a few things to remember. The program works with land ownerships of 5+ acres. We can directly contract with an HOA. So if there's common held land for an HOA, we have done projects through this program with them. We do work with multiple landowners, but we've found issues come up with substantial numbers of very small landowners, because we directly contract with every single landowner. So every landowner gets paid their percentage of the overall project. So if you've got a bunch of people who only have half an acre of project size, it's not even worth our getting into contract.
yeah.
And that's something that's come up. What's the other thing? Two things. Oh, defensible space. We're not supposed to do defensible space with this grant. So they're just like EQIP, just like CPIP, 100 feet around structures. It's not the intent of the funding. It's supposed to be treating, your forested area. So you're supposed to be doing your 100-foot defensible space kind of on your own. Because it's a legal requirement under resources code to do it.
I was just looking through the requirements again for eligibility. Is the property should be at least 5 acres and less than 500?
1,000.
5,000? Oh, okay, there's a little typo. I couldn't, yeah.
I think at one time it might have been 500.
It's now 5,000.
It's 5,000.
Okay, so then you can apply. I was just thinking about her 500-ish acres.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I think the 500 thing again was our first funding source was through Proposition 68. It had a lot of hoops that we had to jump through. So I feel like that might be a hangover from that.
Okay, sweet. Thanks for sharing. Double presentation.
Thank you.
With the last few minutes, we're just gonna look at upcoming events, and one I already mentioned is this afternoon, Fire Safe Sonoma is having their Measure H presentation, and I sent the link in the chat too to sign up for that Zoom meeting. It's at 2:30 today. And then a few other Fire Safe Sonoma events. They have a lot coming up on May 17th. They're having a volunteer day. If anyone's interested, that's at Oddfellows, right? And then their speaker series, May 22nd, is going to be a Cal Fire Wildland Fire Seasonal Outlook with Chief Nichols. So that might be fun or interesting for people to tune into. And then the UCANR for Stewardship workshop series is having a webinar focused on forest road management, and that's coming up on June 10th. So I think that would be relevant to one of our group members. And the last one is our next forest working group meeting is on June 19th. And it's gonna be a little different, it's at a different location. Adriana, did you wanna share any kind of preview on our June 19th meeting?
Yeah, so, thanks, Rose. Yeah, it'll be at the same time at 11 o'clock and on the same day, but it'll be longer. We'll go until 2 o'clock. And it will be, we'll meet at the, UCCE office off of Aviation Boulevard. Because they have a really big meeting room, and the purpose of the meeting will be a focus group meeting, to gather input from the forest working group members like you, as well as other, landowners or, conservation organizations and even agricultural organizations who haven't previously been, participating in the forest working group. Because the county is looking for information, they wanna gather input from, large acreage landowners and those who serve those large acreage landowners on that, wildfire resilience program that Jason mentioned earlier. So the county's going through like a whole scoping process right now, where they're thinking, if we wanna do a wildfire resilience program, how should it look? What should the county do? They've already done like several surveys to understand people's, opinions, their needs and kind of the sentiment out there. But now they wanna like continue to drill down even deeper and have these focus sessions with individuals where they can talk about, talk about each of the issues that they've uncovered in more detail. So, so this focus group will be for large acreage landowners. There are other focus groups for other audiences, but that's what this one will be. And we'll talk about issues like, funding support for work that you want to do on your property, labor, skilled labor and workforce development for all the labor that's needed to do that work, environmental protections, landowner education. So like, can you do some of it yourself and have the support that you need to, to engage in all of this? So, yeah, that's sort of the preview of the agenda and what we're gonna be talking about. I'd love for you guys to come. I'm gonna send out more detailed invitations too, to the whole working group and those other folks. So more details are coming, and yeah, just feel free to reach out if you have any questions.
The address.
Yes.
Beautifully. Thank you. Yeah, so Adriana will get out that detailed invitation with the address, and we'll also keep our website updated. I think the address might already be on there, but here at sonomaforest.org/events, you can see all these partner events that were mentioned and the details about upcoming meetings. Yeah, and if you have any events that you want to share on our calendar, you can always email them to me or Adriana. We can add them to the forest working group event calendar. I think that's it, folks. Thanks everyone for joining on Zoom and here in person. Thanks, Jason, for presenting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Happy
you.
Thursday.
You.
About time.
Yeah.